We've seen the 3 salons, so for you, those of you who haven't been able to see our artist salons, I really do recommend that after this panel you really go and do it because it's so worthwhile. I want to thank all of our staff, but in particular Avery Willis-Hoffman, who organized all of this with Damien. This is a joint project, and I just want to thank all of you for coming. We're live streamed on our Facebook page, so for anybody whose friends couldn't get here or something, you can tell them that they can go to the Armory Facebook page and they can actually see the speeches live streamed. And of course, we'll have them on our website afterwards. So after thinking about what it is to be a citizen in America, this time we're going to talk about different forms of music and how they are involved in changing America or responding to change in America. Music, film, spoken word, and comedy. And thinking about how they can affect these rather challenging times that we have right now. So let me just say that before we get started with the conversations, you might have noticed this beautiful piano that's sitting here. And I'm going to ask Damien to come up and join me, along with Camille Zamora, co-founder of Sing for Hope, and Alyssa Sanchez, director of the Lenox Hill Neighborhood Women's Shelter, which is upstairs. There's a shelter run by Lenox Hill on the 4th floor of the Armory. It's sort of part of the ecology of the Armory, and they do a very beautiful job. So anyway, he has a surprise. Damien has a surprise to tell you about.
Thanks so much, Rebecca. So I'm Damien Wetzel, and I'm proud to be director of the Aspen Institute and co-convener of this. I want to thank Rebecca and the Armory and Avery Willis-Hoffman, my partner in creating this, along with Danae Pointer from the Institute in programming this day. We're kicking off with a session called Sounding Off. In this session. As Rebecca said, it is about music, but it's not just about music in terms of music we listen to, it's also about what music does in the world and what the arts do in the world. And in many ways, I grew up being taught that the arts are in service, that the arts are about service, that there's a role for an artist to do ecumenical duties, if you will, about how you participate in society is not merely just to ply your craft, that there's more to it than that, and it's a privilege to be an artist, and with that comes obligations. I'm proud to serve on the board of an organization called Sing for Hope. Co-founder Camille Zamora of Sing for Hope right here. Sing for Hope brings service opportunities to artists around New York City, and it is a model for these kind of things around the country. It begins with the idea of, for instance, hospitals, bedside visits, and they are sopranos, and so that's how it grew as Sing for Hope, but it's also dancers and theater people and lots of different artists who participate. They also have a program called the Pianos, the way we call it. And every June, if you're a New Yorker, you've seen these pianos, beautifully painted, appear all around the city. So we have a special intersection for this day of music and service in the Armory. So I want to hand it over to Camille.
Thank you so much, Damien. It's such a joy to be here. I was just joking with Jason about the fact that, I think this is the hand of fate and the hand of Damien that brought this particular piano to this particular amazing place. Sing for Hope, as Damien was saying, every year we have a tangible, playable symbol of our belief in art for all, which is that we leverage the power of artists in service, bringing old pianos to life through paint and decoupage and plaster and all sorts of things. And these pianos come to life during the winter months and then are launched into the parks and public spaces, all 5 boroughs, for 3 weeks in the summer. And then they are placed in schools, hospitals, hospices, veteran centers, where they go on to live lives. New York City has been home to more street pianos than any other city in the world. This year, we will place our 400th piano. And this, it's a pretty wonderful thing, and really made possible just by this incredible ecosystem of artists in New York City. When Damien mentioned a couple of weeks ago or a month ago that we had this opportunity to bring a Sing for Hope piano here to the Armory and here to this incredibly special shelter, we said, well, this is great, but it's not really the right incubation moment. The artists who are chosen by the adjudication committee have just hit the studio, and we don't really have one, except actually there is one artist who's really strong out of the starting box. She is racing because she has some travel coming up. Lady J. Day has this amazing empowered woman piano that she has been thinking about, and maybe could be ready by the date of this convening. And so indeed, Lady J. Day, who is in France now, quickly just about finished her piano, and so it's here today. It's actually, full disclosure, it will go back to the studio. She's going to do a little bit more work on it. It will be in the parks in the summertime, and then it will come on to live the rest of its life here at the Armory Shelter.
Good afternoon. My name is Elisa Sanchez, and I'm the shelter director for the Park Avenue Women's Shelter. We're located on the 4th floor. Lenox Hill has been operating the shelter since 1996. All I can say is that I'm just, I'm overwhelmed. Thank you for thinking of us. It will be greatly appreciated. We have some women that play lovely upstairs, so we actually have a piano, but I am going to push that out of the way and very happily welcome it home. Thank you.
So we thought there's nothing like, we don't have keys to hand over, but we do have music to hand over. So I thought if we could welcome Jason Moran and Davóne Tines, who will inaugurate this piano in this ceremony for us. Jason Moran, Davóne Tines. Okay, we're going to reset the stage, and the panel will come out. Let them do that. I would just say that that idea of bringing this piano here is just one of those moments when you realize that you can do things. And I think we should all take that with us these days more than ever, perhaps, that there are moments when you can do things. And that idea that there's a women's shelter on this property, and we were doing a thing about how the arts intersects with society, and there's a program in this city that provides musical instruments to health centers and schools and community centers, and it all can come together. You have to remember how easy it is, actually, once you just decide to do something, because there's so many people of goodwill and people willing to participate. So let me please welcome to the stage Ric Leichtung, who will be our moderator for Sounding Off. He is the co-founder of Adhoc and curator of National Sawdust and senior talent buyer for Webster Hall. Ric will introduce the rest of the panel. Please all come join us.
Welcome everybody to Sounding Off. Today, more than ever, the tune you play and audience you connect with today are more important than ever. Artists are increasingly arbiters of change and progress, and our panel of musicians will sound off on the music world's outcry in the current political climate, audience expectations, and what comes next. Today we have, from left to right, Toshi Reagon. Camille Zamora, Jason Moran, and Davóne Tines, just joining us from Paris. So let's get started. In light of all that's going on politically, what's the next step for each of you? Toshi?
I'm doing exactly what I've always done.
And I would say ditto, and it's schizophrenic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Because I think, artists who decide to devote their lives to probably what some might consider meaningless outcomes, there's a point where I always wonder, well, then what are we doing it for? And it rattles me every once in a while. Every once in a while, I have to check myself, okay, do I know why I'm doing this anymore? Or who I'm doing it with, or who is it for? And despite every audience that I perform for, I don't take that for granted that also people want to sit and watch or listen and experience a performance. And in that case, hopefully maybe even change someone's mind or reaffirm something. Maybe even reaffirm a stereotype. And the kind of work that I've done, the way I have learned, much like they have said, has been, that has always been part of the fabric. It is unfortunate when you notice it's not the fabric of some of your peers. And that wake-up call has come, really shockingly to some of my friends. And what I say in the jazz world, we say, no more meaningless solos. No more of that. Nobody needs to hear that anymore. And so this is the work that I do.
One thing that I've started to find is you get really excited about doing something because you feel like you have a reason to do it. And then time and time again, you get reinvigorated to do it more, but you may not want that. For instance, maybe a year and a half ago was a certain peak in police brutality violence. And it really pushed me and some friends to make a piece called Requiem for a Tuesday that we did at National Sawdust. And you think about it a lot, you put it together, you hope it's something impactful and important. And it's a response to something heated that happened months ago. But damn it if the past events that inspired it don't just repeat into present and future events. So the thing just keeps becoming relevant.
Which really brings us to our next question. It seems like we're heading back to the age of the artist as an activist. How do you feel responsible as an artist to guide the political climate and the cultural climate?
I don't think I really understand the back to. My people for generations develop a system around how to vocalize and create a home inside of their bodies because they were so disenfranchised to actually own space and be seen as human. So there's no going back to or anything. It's literally a system of being. And when you're attacked brutally and horrendously, constantly, and devalued constantly, and stolen from constantly, and violated constantly, and then you build a legal structure around it so that your fight doesn't just become against the actions against your body, but there is no where to go but to yourself and the sound your body can make and the sound of anyone willing to join in it with you. And that is a means of being for Black people in this country. And so I don't know the day that somebody attached the word activism to it, but it's what we always have done. And we have created the only language of democracy this country actually knows. And this country, to this day, is in denial of that fact. It literally will not teach its origin of existence to young people. So there's this sense that we're always starting over and, oh my God, can you believe this is happening again? It never stopped happening. It was pushed. The circle was widened from those white men who own things to other kinds of humans, and they were forced to move. But the majority of time we have been here, those white men that own things have run a trail of destruction that we will never recuperate from. We can only hope to evolve into being some other kind of people. The sound that can come out of your body can fill space, can hold your sanity, can communicate a direction to go when no one will tell you, can teach a history so you know who you are, can hold you in the light so that you know you are loved and you belong, can tell you the truth so that when people tell you you are horrible, or that you deserve the beating, or you deserve the rape, or you deserve the murder, that somebody says, no, you don't. And I have learned that, and I have never stopped doing it, and I never will. And I don't know what anybody else is doing. I really don't. This is not new. And if you aren't already in a circle, these things can happen. And we have Trump because of emotional poverty and denial of who we are. And if we are already in circles, we would never allow a Trump to happen. So this is an opportunity for everybody to find a circle and pass it on and never let it go.
Thank You know, I have to say, I so love that your response, even to that word, activism. I mean, activism for me has a connotation of outward action. And obviously, clearly, that is a critical component. I love that you talked about going inward and about the fact that it is going into the body, finding this sound, excavating that central, authentic place. That's the repository, I think, for healing in some ways, that is where we have begun to get real. And I do think at this moment, there is something so imperative about what art can offer, which is the opportunity to get authentic with ourselves and with each other about the level of emotional poverty we're dealing with, about the systems that have put into place this, I can't even call him president, this person who has been elected president, so I guess he's president. But the point is, we can get real with ourselves through art. And I think, you know, I have to say, you know, for me, I grew up in Houston. We actually went to the same high school. I had good public school art. My parents were teachers. I was in chorus. I always had this direct road to the safest place that I knew, which happened to be through singing. And I was lucky enough, I got to go to my dream school. I got to come to New York to go to Juilliard. And one of the things that kind of springboarded Sing for Hope was that my fellow co-founder and I, my best friend Monica Eunice, also a soprano, we were at Juilliard during 9/11. And a lot of people don't realize, but Juilliard actually shares a city block with a firehouse that was among the first responders that day, and they lost 11 guys. And for us, there in our second year at this beautiful, you know, hallowed hall school, we just were stopped in our tracks, because I think at another moment in our country's collective history when we were all just scratching our heads going, what just happened? We as musicians, in particular classical musicians, felt very extraneous. I think, and I think for us, what we just did was got a group of friends together. We went and started singing at firehouses, using kind of ironic humor. We called it tragedy caroling at the time. But we went, and I think what we found was these guys who hadn't cried yet started to cry. We ourselves started to feel more authentic. We started to feel that there was this incredible way to connect with ourselves and each other. And if we could just find better inroads into our communities, literally on our same city block, that actually great stuff probably could happen. And so for us, I think, whether or not we called it activism, whether or not we call it activism now, it is about looking at our delivery systems. Delivery system both for our own way of connecting with ourselves, but also, certainly for these beautiful classics of music. I mean, I kind of joked when I said, what am I about to do? I'm about to do what I always do, which is sing opera, and it's schizophrenic because I'm about to go sing Madame Butterfly in a big opera theater. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. It's the one thing I do really well in life, but at the same time, it can feel very ivory tower and very irrelevant. And so I think looking at this delivery system of, okay, how can we take this stuff that has shamanistic power to reconnect ourselves and, really get real? And how can we deliver it to places of need in the leanest, most efficient way possible?
Yeah. There's a high school I started working with a couple of years ago in Chicago called Kenwood Academy. And I really, because the way that I like working is if an older musician tells me something to do, then you kind of just got to do it. And it's like you just don't okay, no, whatever. But so this older musician and pianist, great pianist in Chicago, Willie Pickens, said, my daughter started working with this high school band, and it's the program he started. He started a jazz band at this school in the 60s. And he said, you should come check them out. And I was like, sure. Now, I'm playing the Chicago Jazz Festival. They're playing there, but they play 11:30 a.m. and my concert is at 8, and I was like, okay, that means I should go over there at 11:30, Jason, and watch these kids play. And I went and watched the kids play, and then I was blown away. It wasn't really about what they were playing, but I was blown away by their energy, because they had decided at their high school that they were going to show up at the end of the day and stay for 3 hours every day and rehearse. And I felt that energy, and I was like, well, I have a commission with the Chicago Symphony Center. I'm going to write music for these kids, to bring these 40 kids on stage with me, and then we'll perform this piece together. And so we did this piece, and it was beautiful. And then now, in a few days, next week, I'm bringing all those kids who are now, it's different kids now, but they're coming to the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. So they get, like, a lot of them getting their first trip, So some of them have been to D.C. before, but now they're going to play. And there was something that when you're in the process of making a work with other people in mind, that you're not sure about what will kind of occur, what triggers you will hit in people, let alone the trigger you hit in yourself, and why you think you do the work you do. I was checked so many times through the process, and then by the end of it, I knew that, oh, it had nothing to do with this commission. It was just about making sure I ushered these kids into this room, onto this stage to be themselves. And that was it. And then that I should do that again, and that I should do it again, and that I should do it again. And that if 40 years from now they drive by Chicago Symphony Center and they're talking to their kids and say, when I was 17, I was up on that stage, and their kids say, and but like, and for me that had, it was not what I set out to kind of make as a pianist, but as a person who wanted to like say, nah, you're me as much as I am, and I need you as much as you don't even know, but I need you. I need you. And I think we cut off probably where we think our vitamins are that sustain us. Like, oh, I need it from this so-and-so and my pastor and this, and it might be there, and it also is in places where we probably are overlooking traditionally. And these things about kind of like finding the way into the other spaces is really, it's hard, because I play these concert halls all over the world, and like, that's cool, but, and ... And so it's a struggle and a challenge, to maintain energy to do all this too.
Like Toshi was saying, art by its very nature is activism in all of its forms. And so you might say, well, what is activism? And it's maybe making or letting some people know some things that you think are important. I kind of jokingly say sometimes I get paid to tell people about themselves. But you think, well, what does that mean? I think the challenge for me personally, at least, is to always try to answer the question of why, and try to answer that question in every single context possible. So why are you saying that word that way? Why is it in the sentence that way? Why is it in this song to tell this story? And if you can't answer that question to every answer or every part of the step, then there's something wrong. You have to go a little deeper, go somewhere else, and find that answer. Because if you're standing on a stage saying something and you can't back it up, then you're lying. So why are we putting on this production? Why did Beaumarchais create Figaro? To let people see poor people in the context of rich people. Why do we have an opera coming up in the fall from Adams and Sellers about the gold rush? It's because it's the first time in America so many different types of people had to come together to see each other. So activism has been happening, and now we kind of we're scurrying around to try to see, oh, what do we do? But we just kind of look at the tools that are already kind of lying there.
I loved what you were saying about challenges. Toshi, what are some challenges that you are being faced as an artist? Pick one. Or two.
It's okay. All of the roads are not easy, but I just have to keep going back to my people. They work so hard. They work so hard on the basics of life. They work really hard for to have a home, a building, and they work really hard to make sure that they had some land to grow some food on. And my mother was born in 42. My grandparents, my grandmother had eighth grade education. My grandfather had sixth grade education. My grandfather is a Baptist minister and a carpenter. And my grandmother, she was one of the hardest working people. She laid her hand on every child that came from her family. They worked so hard. It was so challenging. They live in the South in Albany, Georgia. They segregation and discrimination, and there's a gun on the wall that was loaded, and my grandfather would leave and he would tell my grandmother, if you have to take it off a wall, kill everything in front of you. And the Klan and white men, for whatever reason, would walk around their house at night. Wouldn't come on the porch. These are the most loving, amazing people that raised me. So I think the path is not easy, it's hard. I'm an independent artist. I self-produce just about everything you see me do. If you see me do anything, I'm self-producing with a bunch of people, the opera Parable of the Sower from the novel by Octavia Butler. But what I find is that I'm kind of following the path of my grandparents and my ancestors, which is keeping good company. And so I have a lot of collaborators and I have a lot of friends. And I literally survive by those relationships and my intention to exist. And I think that's very much what my grandparents did. And so yes, there's a lot of challenges, but I think I'm supposed to overstand them and move forward. And I would say technically I can drop like 100 things. But I think I'll just do a simple one because I don't think you're going to get to this question. But streaming as a technology doesn't suck, but the fact that people don't pay for music really sucks, big time. And I wish people would buy music of the artists that they need and love in their life. Nothing. Like, it's not thank you for coming to the concerts, because that really is so important now. But nothing has changed for us economically in terms of how much it costs for us to produce music. And nothing has changed for you in terms of how much you need to have music in your life. But what has changed is that somehow these corporate billionaires, which are usually like one or two people in charge of a company, have tricked the public into thinking they're getting something for free, and literally people are not getting paid anything. Right? If you see my little royalty statement from Pandora, I have pages this thick, and they lead to about $30. It's a complete ripoff. And if you love music, and if you love artists, and if you're going to keep streaming, you should send every artist you love a check yourself. Seriously. Seriously, you should. Because it's devastating. That's the technical challenge.
Camille, do you have thoughts on challenges that you have as an artist?
Yeah, I mean, God, a lot of challenges. I mean, I think one of our challenges in just life in general is, beware the default settings. I think, in particular, in this arts mecca of New York City, the default settings, even here, they're not good. I know, I spend a lot of time listening to my F sharp, and is it sharp enough, or is it, honing these little micro tonalities in a city where the vast majority of kids can't recognize the concept of high or low tone. That is not the default setting I want to live in. That is not the world I want to live in. And so on some level, I have to look at my own participation in these systems and ask if I am propping up fundamentally unwell structures. Again, I have to come back to my own bliss and the fact that I sing Mozart and I do it well and it's what I love. It's my bliss. I can't deny that. But I think the challenge of challenging ourselves to ask for the systems to be better, the delivery systems to be better. I will say, arts nonprofit, good Lord, what was I thinking? If anybody wants to give a great gift to the city of New York, please speak to me about funding these beautiful pianos. I think one of the things that's been so great about the pianos is because they're so widely embraced. I think people think it's a city program, and we are funded by nickels and dimes and dream of finding that endower or that, huge sponsor. And then I think finally, for any artist, the great challenge is the leap of faith. What Damien said, it was so beautiful. It's like things can seem hard or, wacky, like let's really quickly fast track a piano into this space because guess what? The Armory has a shelter. Who knew? But not only is it possible, the universe steps in and goes, oh yeah, actually the one piano of the 400 that is finished just on time is the Women Rise piano. That's the piano I'm going to give you.
So Jason and Davóne, we only have 2 minutes left, but you have any closing thoughts?
No.
No? Nothing you can fit into 2 minutes?
Not even. I passed my 2 minutes.
Spotlight's on you.
I'll just say one thing that I continue to find myself saying so much that I might even tattoo it on my body, which is context is everything. If you can't show the context or something, just keep trying. Context is everything.
Boom.
Here you go, Jason. Yeah, Jason.
I planned that.
Step up to the plate, Jason.
No, I don't. The challenges are how do I've never found balance. Never. I can't say no to a project that is insanely difficult. I can't say no to my family. I can't say no to the piano. Like these things, and they, and everybody kind of like tries, and people ask, oh man, managing and that, but no, I'm losing my mind literally right now. I know I'm not playing, but I'm really losing it. And Facebook don't help me. And so I need help. And my challenge is asking people for help. That's my biggest challenge. And I don't know. I live here, and I really try to work out every problem I have there. And it's not there every day. You know what I mean? And so I don't know. That's my biggest challenge. Because if I'm not well here, then what I put out might, I'm not sure what it's doing, and I get worried about that. So then I retreat. So that's kind of my challenge now as an artist.
Can I go back?
Oh, go right ahead.
It just reminds me of, I'll talk about my old dead people again, because I think it's a similar condition. If you have to work so hard, our basics are not necessarily their basics. Their basics was, we have this family and we have to hold this land, we have to do this, and your basics are something else. But it is an overextension of a capacity of your body and of your spirit and of your mind. And it's interesting, you're not the first one of my friends that I hear say that. A lot of my friends who are doing amazing work and very well are completely overextended. Completely like I'm about to be like, do we need to put some money in a pot and all travel to a little space and just have a weekend of fun? Because they really are like, yo, I actually can't sleep, or I'm doing so much work I can't think. We need to talk about our retreat.
Yeah, we do.
We do. Let's get it done.
One thought that I enjoy, a good answer to that question, why, that comes from our great Peter Sellers, is imagine the world that you want to see and then go for broke trying to make that world a reality. So, like as you were saying, you don't want to live in a place where children don't have exposure to high and low tone, even though you're wanting to tune your F sharp, but you've made 400 portals to where people can now have exposure to that. So figure out what's not there and do all you can to put it there.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. You got through it, right?
Thank you, Park Armory. Thank you, Aspen Institute. And thank you, Sing for Home Project.